Okay, guys, so quick verbal checklist. You have now selected out the 4 images your favorite. You've written down a list of 5 nouns as a minimum, 5 common nouns, things that you can see. What can I see in my picture? You've listed those 5 things. You've made a note of the proper nouns we'll use in our writing tomorrow, that this is in Kansas, America. And you've committed to at least one abstract noun, one idea or feeling that you're going to try and create when we choose words with certain connotations and ideas tomorrow to build a connotation of an atmosphere that's either going to be linked to beauty or anxiety or alienation or something mysterious or some sense of busyness. So you've also committed to a word. We've then summarized thinking about your image to help us choose where we're going to begin and what we're going to develop in our writing tomorrow. And in the beginning sentence, literally letting your eye plan your writing for you. What's the first thing your eye's drawn to, the next, and in the end. So one last stage. So all good writers, because they're thinking about their readers, can create what we call a statement of intent. So we're going to do 2 last little bits of writing today so that we've got a plan in terms of our intention that we're going to put into practice tomorrow in our writing. So we know that good readers ask questions, but similarly writers do. What am I writing about? Who's involved? Where will the events take place? When is it happening? And how do I want the reader to feel? So if you look over on the other side of the page, it says write a description suggested by the picture. So that's the writing, that's the task that we're going to do tomorrow, using our planning from yesterday and today to inform that description. So we're going to make a statement of intent. So if you look here, we're going to copy and complete this statement. I'm going to do one as an example, but you obviously need to make sure you're making the decisions that you want to make. This is where you take ownership of your writing. So it says here, I am writing about a picture of. So out of the 4 pictures now, you commit and just write a brief description of the picture you're choosing. So I am writing about a picture of a lonely, isolated house in the middle of a wheat field. So pause the video and just complete that first part of the paragraph. Brilliant. So now you've chosen which picture. Now, this bit, we're going to make a decision really quickly on the spot now. We haven't revised this, but I'm just going to remind you then that when we write this description tomorrow, we can decide to use first or third person. In other words, I could write about this picture tomorrow as if I was a character within it. So I could use lots of those first person pronouns, I, we, me. So for example, I could start to think about this picture. I was sat alone in a house in the middle of a wheat field. Now, some people like first person. It creates like an intimate tone when you're writing. It means you can create a character's perspective and point of view of the place that we're describing. So you might want to commit to using first person in a minute. So in a minute, you're going to say, I will use first or third person. Now, third person is more objective. So you use words like they, he, she, it. So you're describing this picture from a more distanced perspective, a more distant point of view. And again, this can be beneficial. Some people prefer to write in the third person because then they're not trying to describe and create character. So the first thing then, you've got to just decide, the second thing, sorry, you've got to decide, you're going to pause the video and just decide, going to go for first person point of view or third person, okay? So I will use third person for my description tomorrow, but you can choose first or third. Okay, brilliant. So just pause the video and make that choice. Okay, now this is another element that will give you something to let your imagination play with between today and tomorrow, is that none of these pictures actually have a character. None of them have a person in a really explicit, obvious way. However, they all hint at the involvement of people. They could create an imaginative opportunity to bring in, or if you prefer, to leave out a character tomorrow. So if I'm thinking about that picture of the thresher, it could be a driver, it could be a farmer, it could be a worker in the land. If I'm thinking about the picture with the sunset and the big industrial grain production machinery, it could be a worker, it could be a farmer, it could be a child, it could be somebody lost in this landscape. So you do have an imaginative choice. And again, this will come into play tomorrow Really, it's going to help us when we do some sentences tomorrow. But you could just decide now whether you think you want to bring in or leave out a character. Okay, so you just get to complete this paragraph. I'm writing about a picture of a small house in a wheat field in a wheat field. I will use third person and leave out a character. That would be my choices, but you get to choose for yourself. So just pause and complete the paragraph so far. This is our statement of intent. Brilliant. Okay, last little bit then. The picture is from so hopefully you've been listening. So what is the name of the grain growing in these plains? Brilliant, you've remembered it. So the picture is from the wheat plains okay, so what's the name of the state in America that this is from? Dorothy was from there, Wizard of Oz. Brilliant. So the picture is from the wheat plains in Kansas, America. Now, for me, I still look at these pictures and it creates a little sense of that loneliness and alienation. So my final intention down here, I want the reader to feel a sense of loneliness, alienation, and smallness. Now, those are going to be really important when I come to word choices tomorrow. Okay, so we are going to need to know what atmosphere we want to create in our writing. So we now have our first part of a paragraph for our statement of intent. So pause the video and make sure you complete that paragraph. If you want to, thinking about whether it's going to be first, third person, are you bringing in or leaving out a character, definitely making a record that it's the wheat plains in Kansas, America. Okay, guys, complete your paragraph now. Okay, now it does say here to copy and complete these last sentences, change the elements that match your picture and choice. Okay, so this is about what we really want to clarify in our writing tomorrow. So really what we're doing is creating a statement of intention through our summary and clarifying statements, and it will be a bit of a checklist. We'll be able to say, well, have I done that? Have I done that? And tick off the things tomorrow as we write. Okay, so I really need the reader to know what this picture looks like, but I need to also help the reader to hear, sense, and feel it too. So where I've got the bits in italics, you're just going to change that to suit your picture. So I really need the reader to know what this picture looks like. So I really need this picture to know this picture is a small house surrounded by a wheat field with a dark sky. But I also need to help them hear, sense, or feel it too. So what sound? But I also need them to hear the sound of the wind. Actually, I might need them to experience a sense of silence. So I just complete those statements. So here it says, I really want them to understand. So by the end of our reading, what do you want them to understand this picture? Now, I've gone for the size and the scale of the place that may make you lonely. What do you want them to understand? So you might say, I want them to understand how scary it would feel to be in the middle of this field. I really want them to understand how beautiful this place is. I really want them to understand how busy and noisy it is at harvest time. So you just decide what atmosphere you want to create. Now, this bit is optional. Do you think there's going to be anything that's going to be really tricky to do? Do you think it's going to be tricky to describe the sky? Do you think it's going to be tricky to describe what that wheat might feel or sound like? And that's going to be our challenge point. So this tricky idea of being lonely needs to be clear. This tricky idea of the sound of the wheat needs to be clear. Now, the reason we're going to set ourselves a tricky idea is that challenges us as writers to go beyond the obvious, because writers often get to a point in their writing and they'll come to something tricky. Now, we know this in life. Sometimes we get to the tricky bit and we give up. Hopefully not. We're going to think about the resilience needed to overcome any tricky ideas in our writing tomorrow. So, lovely people, pause it. Make sure you've got your statement of intent. Now, this is going to be our plan and our checklist when we come to writing tomorrow. It's been really lovely to work with you today. I hope you've made a good choice with your pictures. I hope you're already beginning to let your imagination think about the emotion and feeling you want to convey. Okay, and we can challenge ourselves tomorrow as well to use some of that key vocabulary. So, do any of these pictures, how could we use the word impregnated? Yeah, how could we use the key word sinister maybe? Now, sometimes we can use it in the negative. This place wasn't sinister at all. It was beautiful, but inexplicably so. How could anyone else understand the beauty of this place? Okay, so we can start to use some of that vocabulary in our writing tomorrow. Guys, you've been wonderful. Don't stress if you haven't finished all the activities. Don't stress if there's anything you don't understand. Do what you can, because really it's tomorrow's lesson where we start to do the writing. that I'm going to hold you to account. Okay, my lovely people, have a really good rest of your day. Bye.